good that he took that away from me, because I will literally sit here and click the book the whole time. I've done that before. And then somebody afterwards like, you clicked it the whole time. I'm like, no. So my name's Nicole. I'm an alcoholic. And thank you for having me. I just want to say for this group specifically, you guys made me feel really welcome here tonight. I got here extra early on accident, and I'm more of a stay after the meeting girl, I'm not warmed up yet before the meeting, so, but y'all made me feel really welcome, so thank you. I appreciate that a lot, and I'm sure so does other people that come here, that it's not their home group, so. My sobriety date is August 11th, 2014. Thank you. And I got sober in Pinellas County. I love Pinellas County. My home groups have always been in Pinellas County, mostly Dunedin, Clearwater, Oldsmar area, but recently North St. Pete, which is weird because I live in East Pasco County. So a couple years ago, I moved to East Pasco County in Zephyrhills. I'm a city girl, and I don't know why I moved there, but there I am, and so I'm still acclimating. So if anybody knows anybody in East Pasco County, Wesley Chapel, Zephyrhills, Dade City area in AA, that's awesome. Please talk to me after the meeting, because I'm still trying to find my groove. So anyways, let's get down to business. So let's see. Oh, I have a sponsor, super helpful. And I sponsor others. So I highly recommend a sponsor if you've never had one before. I kind of think of them as like, we talk about tools in a toolbox, and my sponsor is great. She helps me see things I can't see in my recovery. She tells me hard things sometimes that I need to hear, and I'm willing to hear those things. It's kind of like an agreement we have, right? So that's how I use a sponsor. But obviously she's taking me through the steps as well. On sponsorship, I have had a couple sponsors in my sobriety, and actually my current sponsor, I had her before when I was like 2 or 3 years sober. I love her. I've known her my whole sobriety, but I was like, I don't know, if anyone's been through like the terrible twos in sobriety, anybody? So like, I didn't like her attitude kind of thing, I didn't like how she was saying that. So I moved on to another sponsor for like 5 years, but I circled back, when I could handle it. But I've had great experiences with sponsors. My first one I had for a very short time, and that wasn't the greatest experience, and I share that from the podium just to let you know that like it is possible to get a sponsor and it not quite be the right fit and just get a different sponsor. It's not all sunshine and rainbows all the time. Sometimes it's just not a good fit, and that's okay. There's like a saying unofficially in AA, like there's a wrench for every nut. Have you heard that one? Yeah. It's true. Sometimes I was like, man, she really reminds me of my mom, like not in a good way, and it's not going to work, So I did. It was really hard though, and that's why I share that from the podium sometimes, is because I didn't have the tools at that time to navigate transitioning out of that sponsorship, right? It was really hard. And what was my MO at the time? Like, I'll just quit the whole thing rather than have a difficult conversation, right? So, but what saved me from that was that I had started to meet people in AA, and I had friends in AA and a fellowship in AA. And what I'm seeing in this room tonight is fellowship and that like camaraderie of having people that are your friends that are walking the journey with you. And those were the people that helped me through that. They talked me through it. They encouraged me. They told me it was going to be okay. They normalized it. Like, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. You're not like getting divorced, And I was scared. I was like, am I going to drink? Am I going to drink if I don't? I'm supposed to just get a sponsor and do whatever they say. Like, what does this mean, right? So I was really afraid too. But the sponsor I got immediately, like at the same time, so there wasn't a gap. I just went right to a new sponsor, and she actually helped me navigate that as well. And then we worked the steps together. So, but I will backtrack. So that was I don't know why I said that. Maybe somebody needs to hear that tonight. I don't know. But, so who am I? Who am I? And how did I end up in Florida, Anyone else move down here to get away from themselves? Anybody? Yeah. Okay, a couple of you. So I don't want to talk too long about, although I did think I was just like a 30-minute speaker, so I didn't know there was like a short one. I forgot about that. So maybe I have more time. Like, was it Danny, right? Where'd he go? Yeah, I could get on a roll too. So I was like, I'm going to condense it. It's going to be good. And now I'm like, well, now I have extra time, so maybe I'll ramble. Who knows? But yeah, so I grew up my dad was in the Navy, so I grew up kind of everywhere. Like, people are like, where are you from? I'm like, technically I was born in Orlando at a naval base, but I'm not really from here. We moved when I was a baby, but so I'll claim it though sometimes when it's useful for me, and then other times I'm like, I'm not from here. Where I kind of, I grew up in a couple different states, doesn't really matter, but where I ended up, did most of my drinking and other things was in Minnesota, actually, in the Twin Cities area. That's where I went to high school, things like that. So my story with drinking is pretty simple. I started drinking when I was 14, and it was like a switch. It wasn't like, I got sober at 28. So for me, it was like, it turned on and it was out the gate intense. There wasn't like a slow progression. There was still a progression, but it was like, I was a blackout drinker immediately. So one of the interesting things about that is, if anyone resonates with that, is like, I wasn't ever afraid of blacking out, which in hindsight with a sober mind, I'm like, because I would hear some people share, like, I would be terrified to hear what I did or what was going to happen if I started drinking, and I was like, why didn't I have that? Like the chip was missing, I don't know, or it was just that way from the beginning, so I don't know, I just never thought about it. And now with like a sober mind and sober eyes, I look back at that, and especially being a parent today, and I'm like, oh my God, like, you could have died in so many ways, but you didn't. So yeah, I mean, before I started drinking, I was in advanced classes, I played soccer, I was a little shy, but, I still don't, like I said, I don't like to socialize too much before the meeting. It's the after meeting, once I'm warmed up. But, so yeah, I mean, I don't know why, I could sit here and try to tell you all the reasons I loved drinking, but I don't know, it just, like I said, it was instant. It was like, not in my life at all, and then it was in my life, and it was the center of my life, Even though the first time I drank, it was like a horrible disaster, super embarrassing things happened. I blacked out, I felt horrible. All the things that you would think, you would be like, that was terrible, I don't want to do that again, but I don't even remember thinking, oh, I want to do that again immediately. It just became what I was doing. And it became my identity, somewhere in the big book it talks about how it really becomes your whole world. And it did for me. My friends, the people I dated, the types of relationships I had, the work that I was a bartender, everything, I formed my whole life around partying. And I liked it that way, I was like, yeah, you only live once, that was my motto. I mean, when I got to AA and they were like, okay, so we're going to do a day at a time, I was like, perfect. I can do that. I can do it. That's how I've been living my life, When you work as a bartender in the service industry, as some of you may know, you get money every day. So it's like, it's a reset, And that's kind of how I lived. So what started to happen is I couldn't quite figure out why I was miserable, right? People around me were doing other things. They were, and I would do things I managed to graduate from college at one point. It was really hard. I failed a lot of classes, and the struggle bus of effort and climbing out of messes. And I was really good at that. I have a lot of energy, and so I was really good at climbing out of messes. And then I would get back into messes again, and they would be deeper, and it would be harder to climb out of. And so that was kind of my progression, is those what do you call that? Valley. Thank you. The valleys got deeper and wider, and it got harder and harder to climb out of. But I was climbing, Even my move down to Florida was like an epic plan, I was like, I just need to get away from all these people, and I need to get away from the snow, clearly, the weather. Seasonal depression is real. And, I'm gonna rebrand my whole life. And I even said, and I swear to God, this is true. I said it's gonna be a tsunami of change. A tsunami. When I get down to Florida, it's gonna be a tsunami of change. And I was in a relationship at the time with another one of us. And I brought him with me, unfortunately. It didn't work out. But I told him, I put him on notice, like, if you're not ready for the tsunami of change, like, you might as well just stay here. And you guys, I was for real. And this is like, I was for real though, like, I even said, he got another DUI the weekend before we were moving. And of course, right, it's like the constant chaos. And so he got a DUI in my car that time. And there's 2 states in the entire US that do this. It's called whiskey plates. Has anyone ever heard of this? So, and I don't know what the other state is, I forgot. Minnesota is one of them. I don't know if they still do it, but if anyone gets a DUI in that vehicle, whether you're driving it or not, you get special whiskey plates. And it's not like Florida where all the plates are like different colors and all the things. There was just one license plate and no one was visiting from out of town. So there's the regular license plate is blue that everyone else has, and then you had a white one and it was black and white with like really harsh letters, and it started with a W for whiskey. And everybody knew what that was. It was like the scarlet letter. And of course, I dated this guy because he was just a little bit worse than me, so it made me feel better about myself. And I was like, this drunk got whiskey plates. It's so embarrassing, right? I mean, you're driving around and everyone is judging, and the cops are like, automatic pullover, no matter what you're doing. So I had to come down here with whiskey plates on my car, and I was so angry, and he had like, I don't remember, what's the kind of license where you drive big trucks? Class something? He lost that, so he lost his whole career. He couldn't drive the U-Haul down here anymore. So I had to put everything in my tiny little car with whiskey plates, and a cat in the car. Yes. And we got down here, and I was like, okay, you know what, maybe that was supposed to happen, and now I'm gonna fill my apartment with only things that make me smile. That's gonna, because that's what I gotta do. I got nothing but positivity and like all that stuff, right? And of course, the reason why I'm telling you this is because I was dead serious, and it got worse down here. I moved to Largo. I was bartending in Largo. I made Largo bar friends immediately. And they weren't the same as my friends back home, because my friends back home, they knew me a long time and they kind of looked out for me a little bit. I always had the couple friends that like, okay, she's blacked out. Let's make sure no one kills her or whatever, and I didn't have that here. And Florida's a different kind of place. It's a little bit, feels a little unsettling. Yeah, Largo. Yeah, it feels a little unsettling. But I made it, guys. What else happened? So he's going back. So, gosh, I don't want to get too long in this part of the story. So maybe I'm going to skip that funny part. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to skip that funny part. Because we got to get sober in the story. So, long story short, and I'll skip all those funny parts in between. But what ended up happening, of course, is like things got worse. It got really miserable between his style of drinking and using and my style, and like the focusing on him, and it ended in a really escalated situation one night when I came home from work. And luckily, like whatever God universe thing happened, my mom had recently moved to the area. She lived way far away and had wanted to move to Florida. We have a very interesting relationship. For those who have met my mom, there's a couple of you in the room. She's an interesting lady. So I wouldn't say she's my bestie, but she got a job in Clearwater, which is where I was living. And she was even like, she was looking in other places, and she's like, well, I got this offer in Clearwater, and we were both kind of like, it's a little close, you know? I was thinking like an hour or two away, you know, maybe Jacksonville or something. Close enough, but like, you know. So she ended up moving here, so I was a little unsure about that, but it ended up being a huge blessing because this massive bottoming out, I had negative $1,000. I was in this really escalated, toxic, emotional, like falling apart, alcoholic relationship that I was in, and I couldn't function, you know. So I ended up, she picked me up at like 2 a.m. with my brother, who was also with her, and I stayed there while I got sober, in her dining room on a cot. Yeah, which is not bad. It could be worse, right? She actually, like a year or two ago, she's like, hey, I found that cot that you used to sleep on, because she just had a little 1-bedroom apartment, you know? She's like, do you want it? I was like, no. But then later, part of me is like, oh, that kind of would have been cool to have for, like, you know, a museum of my life. Like, here's the cot I slept on in early sobriety, kids, you know? I mean, it does add to the story a little bit, though, like having this little cot in the living room. And my mom is really, like, I love her, but, like, she can be irritating. So, like, I would be not well, early sobriety, right? Just a mess and just all the things you guys know. And she'd be, like, right there in the kitchen, like the little bar overlooked the little dining room that was my room that had no walls. And she'd be like, rah, 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 and it's like... the sun just came up, you know, like, and I'm like, so meetings were a refuge, is my point. I go to a meeting. How did I get to AA though, right? Like, so I didn't know, there wasn't people in my family that were sober. I didn't know about the 12 steps or anything like that. I vaguely knew a couple people that had gotten sober, and I had made like a few drunken phone calls to those people at some point. They didn't follow up with me. But I did make a few like 2 a.m. phone calls at some point. But you know, I still before that had the like, I'm not that bad. You know what I mean? I'm not that bad. And actually, shout out to those of you like Danny and some other people that I know in here. Like those stories helped me so much when I was new. Hearing like I went to rehab like 27 times and now I'm sober. Like that really helped me for real, because I was like, if that dude can do it, I can do it too, you know? So those actually helped me a lot when I was ready to get sober. So thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. It still gets me, even when Danny was talking, I'm like, wow, way to go, man. Like, way to go. So anyways, I got down here, the tsunami of change wasn't working out, and I'm like looking, I'm grasping. I've already been doing the things for like 3 years, trying to like, don't drink, you know, tequila, and like maybe I'll just smoke weed, and like, you know, all the like things that I tried that failed already. So I'm primed now. I'm primed for something, because I had spent 3 years now trying to adjust and not do this and carry the two, and you know, now I've moved to Florida and changed everything, and it's still bad and getting worse. So I actually ended up, I didn't have insurance, obviously, so that was out, you know, any insurance was out. And I ended up going to this, it was like a yoga and meditation place, not like a fancy retreat. Like you could go work for a stay, like you could go work and get like, stay there. And they had like meditation and different like things all day, right? Perfect. So I'm out of here, right? This was like in the middle of the Ocala forest. So it was like my way of trying to separate myself. So I went for a couple weeks, learned about meditation, some spiritual things, and I was like, cool, I'm totally fixed. And I've heard people say they have this experience in rehab too, so this is like my rehab experience. I was like, cool, I'm fixed. I came back to that boyfriend and was like, you need to get it together. Like, I'm advanced now. I know the secrets of the universe. I meditate, you know, and now we're really getting positive, you know. I'm just playing reggae music all the time, like, this is the zone. And in August, so I actually stayed sober for like another week when I got home. And then, yeah, but I was totally good. And then, long story short, I ended up drinking again. And it was actually, I was trying to, because one of my things before I got sober was, there was years that I was like, I just want to like go do things. Like, I'm sick of just drinking all the time. Like, I want to like go on adventures, and I want to like go kayaking and paddleboarding and like stuff. I want to learn how to kiteboard. I got really obsessed with learning how to kiteboard for a while. But of course, I was doing none of those things, right? I was just doing the same thing every day. And so when I had that little bout of not drinking, I went with some work people and that boyfriend to, God, is it Chassawitzka? Is that the name of it? Is that, can we confirm? Yeah. Anyways, it's a river thing, right? So I'm like, cool, I'm gonna go do outdoor cool stuff. Like, I'm an outdoorsy sober chick now. And it was a total drink fest, you know? And I end up like, I'm like swimming up, because I only brought, so this was already like a disaster waiting to happen, because I was like, okay, we can only bring 4 beers. Because you can't, like, that's like, you know, you can't get drunk off 4 beers. That was my best thinking, right? So like, I'll just bring 4 beers and then nobody can get drunk. And I also was trying to quit smoking. Bad idea. So it ended up raining there and everything's ruined and people are drinking, and now my perfect idea of what was gonna happen is completely ruined, because I had this whole idea in my mind how this day was gonna go. So I get the effits, right? And I end up drinking and driving, and I'm like, I don't have enough booze though, so I'm like swimming up to random kayakers, like demanding they give me some of their alcohol, like, and that wasn't a good look for me. And honestly, I am really always embarrassed to tell you guys this, but I have to because it's the truth. My last drink was a random Jell-O shot from one of those random kayaks, okay? That is so embarrassing as like a real drinker, you know? Like, I'm not like sitting around drinking Jell-O shots. And now forever, hopefully forever, that's my last drink. So I'm not proud of that, but it is. And it was just a horrible time. I was angry, you know, I'm like, it's everybody else's fault. It was definitely that boyfriend's fault, obviously. So anyways, I go back to that place. I need to go back to that place. That's all I know. And while I was there, I met some people in AA to try to like speed this up. And the weird thing, and I've noticed this, like meeting people in AA this whole time that I've been sober, is like, man, when I meet somebody that there's like this thing, like, do you know what I'm talking about? When you meet somebody in recovery and you're like the same, but it's their sense of humor, or like their way of being, and you feel like you've known them forever. That's my experience. And I had that with this lady, and I didn't even know yet why. She had like 30 some years sober, and she was hilarious, but like in a really relatable way, and like all the things that like somebody with like good sobriety has, like that glow, the laughter, the humility, the self-deprecating humor, all that stuff. And I was like, I don't know why, but I feel like I've known this lady forever, you know? It was just one of those meant to be moments. And I share that story sometimes too, because I remember hearing early on, like, you may be the only example of a big book, right? Has anyone heard that? And she was, and she made it so attractive. And they had a meeting on that campus, okay? Like, hey, we're gonna have a meeting, you know, for anyone who wants to, feels, you know, called or whatever. And I had made 2 friends there. One was like a party girl, and one was like a really solid friend. Not that party girls can't be solid friends, okay? But like, so I was like, hey guys, I'm thinking, like, I don't know why, but I think I need to like go to that meeting, obviously. But you know, I'm like, I don't know. And the one girl, the friend, was like, you know, if you have this feeling you should go, you know? I was like, yeah. And then the other girl was like, do you think you need that? And I was like, whoa. Now when you put it that way, probably not, right? So I had met a few people in recovery though because of that meeting, and some of them lived by me, and they kind of figured out what was going on. It wasn't hard to figure out. And so I got invited to a meeting. Well, I didn't want to go to that though. I was like, is it that serious? So I got suggested to read Bill's story in the book and see if I relate. I didn't. I was like, well, that's not where the book starts though. It starts, I know, already just so annoying. Imagine being my first sponsor. It's just obnoxious to hear me talk. So I was like, well, clearly I'm going to start with where the words start in the book, which is the doctor's opinion. And of course I read it like, what is this 1930s physician talking about? Like, can we get more updated material in here? Like, what is this? And I had trouble with that, right? I got to Bill's story though, and I was like, honestly, I don't know why this 1930s like Wall Street guy from New York, I feel like I could literally hang out with him and it would be cool. You know, there was a lot of things I related to in there. But that still didn't like complete, I kept reading because now I'm kind of like hooked a little because I'm like, wow, this guy's a lot like me. Like the story in there when Wall Street crashed and he's like, yeah, I don't know why everyone was so upset. I just went back to the bar. You know, I was like, that's how I think. You know, that was like my motto. Like, why be upset about anything? Just go have a good time. Like, what are you doing? So anyways, but what really started getting me when I got to more about alcoholism, and then it started to get real because I'm like, whoa, this is like all that confusion about like why things weren't working and why, like I knew it was related to my drinking, which is why I was trying to like continually stop or adjust it or like the things that I was doing. I knew there was a relationship with alcohol, which in hindsight now it's like, duh. But at the time, I remember it being really confusing, but also knowing that I needed to not drink, but like not really getting it. And when I started to read more about alcoholism, the feeling that I got when I read that chapter was like puzzle pieces falling into place. Like, wow, this is explaining everything. And so I kept reading, because I was like, well, maybe I can just read this book and never go to a meeting, because I don't want to be in their stupid club. And so I kept reading with that intention in mind. And it got a little confusing in the steps, and like I was like, well, just, you know, I kind of get the point a little bit, you know. And I keep reading, and I get to the stories, which I absolutely, to this day, I love the stories in the book, on the back of the book, and I love hearing stories. I think people are amazing. I think like we're all miracles, literally. I'm not trying to be a cliche, but like it is amazing. I mean, it is. And there was one story when I get to the back of the book, I forget exactly what it's called, but it's essentially like how to handle sobriety. It's the last story in the book. And I get to that one, and all the years up into that point and everything I've been doing has been so centered on not drinking, right? Like I just have to not drink, like, or change my drinking or drink somehow where I don't get like that, and like all the things. It's all related to like managing my drinking somehow. And that has become impossible, right? I've been doing this for 3 years and I can't even do that. So now I'm trying to, like, in my mind, I'm like the bottom of the barrel now. Like, who wants to go to AA when they're 28, you know? And so I get to that story and it starts talking about, yeah, you know, not drinking is no great trick. And I'm like, are you serious? Like, alcoholics don't drink all the time, you know? That's not the thing. The thing is, how do you stay stopped? And I was like now I'm like, you know, completely mind blown. I never thought of it that way. But also it said, and then, how do you handle your life sober? Because you obviously can't do that. And I was like, oh my God, like, just, you know, dagger. I don't have any clue. I can't even not drink, let alone stay stopped or whatever it's talking about, let alone how do I handle my life sober? Are you serious right now? But what that did for me in that moment was it cracked that door of like, I can't do this. Like this is way beyond my pay grade, you know? And I had this feeling of like, I have to actually go to a meeting. And I really thought, and maybe it's true, maybe it's not, that they put that story at the end on purpose, just for people like me. You know what I mean? I'm like, they put this here on purpose at the very end to make me, I remember like tossing the thing and being like, I gotta go to a stupid meeting, you know? Even with all that realization, this is how amazing alcoholism could be, is even with that realization, I was like, yeah, I'm definitely going. I looked up, there was a women's beginner meeting at 9 a.m. It's in Palm Harbor. It's the Rainbow Group. Has anyone been there, ladies? Yep. So they had a beginner's meeting at 9 a.m. and I was like, perfect. I will go. Everyone there will be a beginner, so I can blend right in. And no one will know I'm there. That is actually not at all how it works in AA. You are the center of attention at the beginner meeting. The horror of that, but so I was like, okay, that's what I'm gonna do, you know? And then like 10 minutes later, this brain, I was like, okay, well, how about this? If I naturally wake up at the time I'm supposed to go to the meeting. And at this time, I'm like I'm a night owl. I'm still like, I'm in that lifestyle. So like, I'm not waking, the meeting's at 9 a.m. I would have had to leave by like 8:15, 8:20 to get there on time. At that point in my life, waking up at like what, 7:45 or whatever, I would have, impossible. It's not happening, right? So I was like, well, if I naturally wake up, I'll take that as a sign that I have to go. You guys, I woke up. Isn't that crazy? And I don't think that's how you should make decisions in sobriety, just for the record. I just think that's the sense of humor that I get to enjoy with God or the universe or whatever you call it. Like that's a thing in my life, you know? Like I say something ridiculous and it's like, oh yeah? So I was like, dang, I gotta go to this meeting. And I cried all the way there. Like, even though I'm doing this thing with myself, right? This is the weird thing to me about alcoholism is like, I can be having this debate and sabotaging myself, but then crying all the way to the meeting. Like what, you know? And then long story short, you know, so I go to my first meeting, and of course I'm like, this is horrible, you know, like staring at the floor, all the things that some of us do. And they were lovely, but long story short, again, I mean, I think I've said that 75 times now, but what I did from that point, it was still a journey, you know, like, there's so many, I was telling Cheryl before the meeting, like, there's so many things that have happened in my sobriety, right? But what works for those of you that are new, you know, consistently, which I've confirmed not only with my sobriety, but like witnessing others get sober that I've sponsored and witnessing other people that I've known over the years stay or not stay. Like to me, I'm collecting information, you know, for myself to stay sober. Is definitely getting in, like I was mentioning, like a group like this or similar that really brings you in and has that fellowship feel. Super, super important. Getting a sponsor that'll work the steps with you. Like we talk about meetings, but like that step work that you do with your sponsor, that's the good stuff. You know, that's where, like, for me anyways, like the growth really happens. The steps are there. They're amazing. I actually read these steps. Here's another funny thing about me as a newcomer. I stood in that meeting and cried another day, not too far after that first day, and said, I've basically done all this stuff already. I still want to drink. I didn't do this stuff, but I reviewed them. And it was like, okay, like I basically have done, I get the idea, like I get it, you know, but I still want to drink. And they didn't make fun of me. I might have made fun of me, so I'm glad I wasn't there. But I was told things like, you know, you're an alcoholic. If you want to drink, it's okay. Like, that's what alcoholics want to do, you know? And I was like, oh, just stick around, you know? Come to breakfast after the meeting, that kind of stuff, you know? Take it a day at a time, chill out, you know? So sponsor, I definitely got involved with home groups. I went to the business meetings or the group conscience, right? Even though I felt totally not prepared. My first business meeting, Cheryl, you're gonna like this. I literally slammed my fist on the table and was like, I'm not sober enough for this BS. But I swore. But I was requested not to swear. Have I accomplished that so far? Did I swear? All right. That was like, this is gonna be the biggest challenge of my sobriety yet. Not swearing while I share. So anyways, those things worked though, as hard as they were. That's where I learned stuff. That's where I met the people that were involved. That's where I met the old timers and saw like their example of how to like be in kind of difficult situations. Sometimes it's weird, we don't always agree in AA, you know? Usually it's about dumb stuff, like what kind of coffee we're serving and stuff, so it's pretty funny. But if you're not ready for that, it's okay. Well, actually, ask your sponsor, don't ask me. So sponsorship, and then like, when I got to the point of I had been working the steps, and it was still really hard, guys. Like, I mean, I still wanted to drink for a while. I'm not gonna lie. It wasn't like this magical thing. I'm glad for those of you that happened to, that like you magically never wanted to drink again and stuff. That wasn't my experience. You know, I had to work for it, and I probably still do, you know? And I remember, I want to tell this story for sure because it's an important part of like how this thing works, in my opinion, is I was about a year sober and I had been nudged aggressively into sponsoring by my sponsor. And my first sponsor, not the one I had briefly, but the one that took me through the steps initially, her energy was like the embodiment of like love and service. Like she's super nurturing, just perfect for me at that time, right? And she was that example. And she wasn't really hard on me, because I wanted to do the work. I didn't want to feel the way I was feeling sober. I was like, if I'm staying sober, we're gonna get happier because I can't keep going like this. So I was motivated to do the step work because if nobody told you, the steps are how you get better sober. And that's really, really useful because being sober without them is really, really hard, and I knew I couldn't do it. So, but she was like, when I got to that point, she's like, okay, like I need help. We were at a night meeting, and there wasn't a lot of women that had time. She was like the only one, and she's like, you're on deck. And I was like, I don't really want to though, and I don't really feel ready. And she's like, that's the only time she ever got mad at me. She's like, are you kidding me right now? Like, how selfish are you? And so I got my first sponsee who was, she had grown up in foster care, never had anyone care about her. She could barely read. She was pregnant. She was super young. She was like 22. And I remember this just feeling like, God, no one's ever cared about this girl that didn't have like, it wasn't their job to care about her, you know, like in foster care and like the system, right? And so I remember feeling like if all I do is show this woman AA and like people that will love her for no reason, like that's good enough, you know? And so I had that sponsee, and I got in this huge argument with this guy I was dating at the time, and we were in Orlando actually at a hotel for some work thing we had. And when I get in an argument with a dude in my drinking life, my MO was like, all right, F you, I'm going to the bar, you know, and I'm gonna make some friends there too, by the way, you know, like I don't need you. So we got in an argument, I left, I go downstairs, the hotel bar, right? And I'm telling the story because like it always reminds me of Bill's story, yeah, which full circle as we wrap this up is, I didn't even plan it that way, it's just happening. So it was like the hotel bar, like it was a circle bar too, which was my favorite shape of bar. If you have a favorite bar shape, it's not in the actual list of things, but you might, you know. So it was a circle-shaped bar, and I'm walking across the lobby, and I don't have any control of what's happening here emotionally at this point in my sobriety. So the thought occurs, right? And it's calling me. And it's my MO, it's my habit, it's everything I've always done in this situation. And I remember that girl, and I'm like, I'm literally the only one. She wasn't plugged in. Like, I met her doing like I had done a speaking thing where I was like, went into some, I think it doesn't matter. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But anyways, I had done a speaking thing, and like, so she didn't know anybody still. She was still in like this halfway house situation or whatever. And she even like, I was the only one that visited her in the hospital when she had her baby, you guys. Like, And I thought about her, and I was like, I can't let that girl down. Dude, everybody's let that girl down. Can't let her down. So I walk past the bar, and I do the thing that I've been told to do once I got past that part, which was, you know, the pull. I was like, okay, I'm supposed to call my sponsor. right? So I go outside, I call my sponsor, she answers, thank God, but I would have called someone else because that's what we do, blah, blah, blah. But she answered, and I just start bawling. And I'm like, it's broad daylight, you guys. I'm like hysterically crying in between random cars, right? Like sliding down in between random cars like snot, you know? And after we talked for a while, like, I'm okay. And I was like, I distinctly remember going, like, is this what people do? Like, they just get really upset and then like and then it's done. And now I'm okay. Like, I was like, okay, I'm good. Like, I kind of stood up like, all right, well, I guess I'll go back inside now. And it was this epiphany for me of like, wow, you can like get through something sober, you know? And it was, I mean, I'm like not getting into the details. It was a big argument, and I didn't have tools to handle that sort of thing at the time. So I got through that, and I always loved that story because later on I realized, I'm like, oh my God, it's like Bill in the lobby. It was so cool. So that's my Bill in the lobby story. But ever since then, I'm like, dang, that's how this like sponsorship thing really works. Like, obviously, I love working with women, and I love like relearning the steps through their eyes, and like I love all that stuff, and I know it helps me stay sober and like staying green with like what it's like to be new and refreshing my memory. Like all that stuff is there too, but I don't know, there's something else, you know, like love, I guess, is what it probably is. But ever since then, I'm like, yeah, sponsorship. That just saved my butt. Almost got it. Almost got me at the end. So anyways, that's why I love sponsoring. It saved me so many times, and that's just the first time. You know, there's so many stories I could tell you forever, but you know, because I can talk, right? About how sponsorship, like the wild, crazy, ironic ways that it's like, you know, the exact thing I needed to hear I'm talking to a sponsee about or whatever, you know, like it continues to amaze me and keep me in the game, so to speak. So, yeah, I think that's kind of my life, you know, blah, 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 my life's great and all the things. Like, that's really not, like, I never even used to talk about all the great things. Like, my life is great, but, like, I don't think that's why we do this. Or maybe it is, I don't know. I guess choose whatever motivation you want. But, like, for me, it was like, I just... like there's like an undercurrent of joy that I have, you know, even though there's the stuff is going on and fears come up or frustrations or whatever, like it's always just kind of there underneath. And that's all I really ever wanted, you know, and I think that's what I was looking for, doing what I was doing is I just was trying to like feel good, you know, and the way I was doing it was making things very bad for me. And I was very unhappy. So I don't know, man. These steps are crazy. As like, I'm married to someone today, and he always says, like, I don't know how it works, but I know it works, you know? And I don't exactly know how, and that's okay. But, yeah, I don't know. I could list all the things, but it feels kind of redundant because we all, you know, I have a great life. I have insurance for my dogs. If that isn't sobriety, right? I started with nothing, and now my dogs have health insurance. That's all I'm going to say about the blessings of it. There's more, but I think that proves a really good point. So I'm going to end with that. Thanks for having me, and thanks for great